We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us, if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn. It's Come, Come, Whoever You Are, number 188 in the gray hymnals.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
One more time.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Come yet again.
Come, yet again come.
Sorry, I get it.
And I invite you to remain risen as we light our chalice and then say our covenant words together.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Reverend Lee Kinvey. This chalice is for the living, the changing, the becoming. This chalice is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are in other people's stories. This chalice is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show you how to get where they expected you to go. This chalice is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting, not by number, but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself from light deep inside. Startling, vivid. A new voice that already knows you. Finally, a true story. Now, please remain risen for our covenant.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto.
Good morning. Welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Julie Borden. My pronouns are she, her, and I am happy to be your worship associate today. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already, and thank you for wearing your masks in the interest of everyone's safety. At Emerson, we honor our roots as a home for open and inclusive spirituality that has now been active here in the West Valley for 70 years. We acknowledge that our church is located on land that was forcibly taken from the indigenous peoples of this place. The Tongva, Kizh, Chumash, and Tatavian peoples were its original inhabitants and remain present today. Our UU values call for us to respect and honor their communities and their cultures, past, present, and emerging. Our worship theme this month is transformation, and today we're talking about how we face and deal with change. Sometimes we want change to be smooth and simple, and other times we resist the idea that it has to happen at all. But change is inevitable, and it is also complicated and messy. So I love this quote from author Jennifer Wright, and I think it sums up the reality of change perfectly. People talk about caterpillars becoming butterflies as though they just go into a cocoon, slap on wings, and are good to go. Caterpillars have to dissolve into a disgusting pile of goo to become butterflies. So if you're a mess wrapped up in blankets right now, keep going. I love that. But how? And today we'll talk about where to find the strength and inspiration to survive that messiness and discomfort. A few more things before we get to that. In a moment, I'm going to invite you to greet your neighbors. And for those online, you can greet each other in the chat. During this time, if there are any joys or sorrows you'd like shared with the congregation, you're welcome to write them in our Book of Life on the candle table behind Kevin, or to use the link for the virtual Book of Life. Now let's greet our neighbors in a spirit of welcome.
Yes, I am. So I'd like to welcome everyone joining us, both in person or online. For anyone who is with us for the first or second time, I'd like to offer you a special welcome and ask you to please sign our guest book in the entry area or our online guest book. We'd love to meet you after the service. Today we have a brief coffee hour immediately after the service, and then at noon we'll have our monthly first Sunday of the month potluck lunch, and a lunch and teach-in about Palestine that Reverend Matthew will be talking much more about. And those of you who are online will get the chance to chat in Zoom breakout rooms. So it's good to be together this morning. Welcome.
So, who here knows the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? All right, a lot of hands. So, in the book, there's this some siblings, but one of the kids, Lucy, is playing hide and go seek, and she's looking for the perfect place to hide, and she opens up this door to this big wardrobe. And she goes through the door and into the back of the wardrobe, and suddenly she finds herself in a whole other world, the land of Narnia, a magical world with witches and fauns and talking beavers. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a magical world beyond every door? I have some pictures here. What do you think might be behind this door? Use your imagination. What might be behind this door? A beautiful forest, yeah. How about this one? A museum? A magic castle. That one looks like a wizard school to me personally. So, when Lucy opened that door to Narnia, it didn't look like anything special. It was just a normal old wardrobe full of clothes and coats. But across its threshold was magic. Now, Lucy already had a foot into Narnia before she quite realized what was happening. And many of the thresholds in our lives, the places from between one place and another, are like that. We don't know that we're crossing over into another world until we're already halfway there. The door of a church that might take us down a pathway of growth we might never have expected. The door of a doctor's office suddenly opens out into life with a hard diagnosis. A restaurant door opens onto a first date and echoes forward into the relationship of a lifetime. A beloved person's door closes behind you and sends you heartbroken out into the world. The door to a library or a gym or a dance studio introduces you to a life's passion you might not have otherwise discovered. We cross these thresholds every day of our lives, for good or for ill, in joy and sorrow, in bittersweet truth. Truly, even our own front door is a threshold, the front door of our home. No matter how familiar we are with the world, with the worlds within and without, given our lives' reality of constant change, every day we open the same old door again, only to step out into a new day that is different from the one before. In this way, there is a new world behind every door, awaiting our discovery, if only we will encounter it as such. I invite you now to join me in saying our Unitarian Universalist affirmation, to join in the hand motions, if you know them. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. One of the ways we live out our Unitarian Universalist value of generosity is by sharing the collection plate. This month, we are sharing it with the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, whose Gaza relief and recovery campaign aims to address urgent humanitarian needs and support long-term recovery efforts in Gaza. The funds raised will primarily focus on immediate relief, including providing essential medical supplies, food, medical treatment, clean water, and other necessities for families affected by the conflict. And in the longer term, the campaign will also focus on rebuilding healthcare facilities and offering trauma counseling, mental health support, and other initiatives for children affected by the conflict. I know right now they have set up essentially open-air medical facilities because so many of the hospitals are not functioning at full capacity, if at all. So you can donate online via the Breeze mobile app or at donate.emersonuuc or and select Sunday offering. If you're writing a check, please make it out to Emerson UUC or EUUC and write "Share the Plate" in the memo. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Each week in our service, we take time to lift up those joys and sorrows from within our community and out in the wider world. This week in our book of life, Amy and Shelley write, in loving memory of our friend and family member, Essie Neff. And as Julie mentioned, and I think many of you know, after the service, we're having our teach-in on Palestine. I'll say a little bit more about that later. But in this moment, just holding this space that this week, the official death toll in Gaza passed $30,000 people. And also hold in our hearts the more than 100 killed while attempting to get food aid, while some 500,000 people or more are currently starving. We know that the situation there is dire, and know that there are people in many places living in conflict zones, living with war and violence and instability. And our heart goes out to all of those who suffer. In a moment, I'll sound this singing bowl. And after I do, I invite you to speak into this space or type into the chat if you're online any joys or sorrows, any names or occasions that are on your heart this morning, and that you would like lifted up into this community in this, our embracing meditation. All that we share and all that we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, we offer these into the embrace of this beloved community. I invite you to join me now in a spirit of meditation or prayer, to drop into this space, into this moment. Maybe that means closing your eyes or softening your gaze, finding a comfortable position, just noticing your breath. As I offer these words about change from the Reverend Elizabeth Nguyen. Spirit, I would really rather not learn this. Didn't think I needed to. I thought someone else could do it. Thought a leader was coming to do it, thought the young people could do it, or the elders could do it, or the professionals. Or I don't want to learn it because it means letting go of something I hold dear. Letting go of being someone who knows the answers. Letting go of being someone who doesn't know. Letting go of the way I see the world. Letting go of how I might have to change. Letting go of certainty, of logic, of facts, of control. Of the myth that you can live on this earth and not harm. Help me to learn it, please, and then help me to live what I have learned and do right by the gift of being taught. I invite you to join me in singing, I Know This Rose Will Open. We'll do it as a round, sing it together once and then split in half. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open.
I have a lot of thoughts about the subject of change. I was once given the assignment of writing my life story in 6 words, and I thought of them pretty quickly. They were finally figured it out, sort of. Well, I finally figured it out, so yeah, it's 6, never mind. It didn't work on my fingers. It's been my internal theme for as long as I can remember. I have a vague memory of a Sunday night when I was in about 5th grade, telling my mom, I'm not going to be shy anymore. That was my obstacle at the time. And it being a Sunday night, I'm sure I was nervous about going to school the next day, as I always was. But I guess I had a moment of inspiration, something that said, I have this figured out. How'd that turn out? Well, there were no miracles. The moment was brief, and I remained just as shy as the week before. And that's it, the story of my life. I'm always just about to crack the code and figure out how to be the person I've known I'm supposed to be. Someone who's organized, eats right, exercises, knows just what to say, and uses my time wisely. I always feel like I'm on the verge of figuring out how to become that person I know I could be if only I could get it together. I continue to marvel at my eternal optimism, how positive I am every time that this is the time, really, I've got it. I'm on a roll, and all of my aggravating traits and annoying habits have receded into the past. But that predictably drifts away, usually in a matter of days, if not hours, leaving the regular me to figure it out again and again. In recent years, I've gone from being frustrated with this tendency in myself to think I've finally figured it out, to leaning into it. I've concluded that I probably learn something with each new revelatory moment. And any growing and changing I do is part of a cycle, not a line with an ultimate destination. Although it took decades, I'm not as shy as 5th grade me. I've learned to speak up in moments that are important to me, like this one. I also know that I'll never be an extrovert, and that's fine with me. I can honestly say that I've finally figured out that there's no once and for all. It is all about the process of becoming. And in that same spirit, please rise in body or in spirit for our hymn, Becoming, and the lyrics will be on the screens.
I am who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. I am who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. You are what you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun.
We are.
We are what we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've
Our reading this morning is called Transformation Is by the Reverend Naomi King. Early on, I grew to love tramping through the woods, hunting edible mushrooms, the little depressions filled with pine litter that bloomed after a rain in late summer into a patch of golden chanterelles, the snag that drew woodpeckers seeking sustenance flushing twice a year with the heavy fruit of sulfur shell. The sandy, dry patches that bore tiny black trumpets were each and all seasonal treasures of transformation. One wonderful and magical place became yet another. The leaf litter changed to leaf mold, and then back to earth, and then from that, once again, mushrooms, herbs, and trees grew anew. Once we harvested those mushrooms, of course, another transformation went on. We washed and cut and cooked them. Those fungi nourished us, changing again. And what we did not eat or could not use went into the compost to change again to nourishing earth. Transformation is life, including the transformation that results in death and decay. We can pretend that it is not so. We can hold on to denial and hold on to rage and hold on to bitterness and hold on to the illusion that somehow we are exempt from change or as perfected as we are going to be. But then the breaking comes, as it inevitably does. Transformation happens because it is part of life, no matter what we try, deny, or do. Brokenness is just one of the ways that transformation happens. We do not get to choose a lot of the changes life brings. For example, I did not choose my genetic disease or my osteoarthritis, but I can choose how I adapt to and learn from the changes they bring. I can transform for bitter or for better, for sickness or for healing, for fearfulness or for generosity, for anger or for kindness, for willful ignorance and hatred, or for wonder and wisdom. Faithful transformation approaches the change that is living with reverence and with humility, with laughter and with a readiness to be surprised. One magical time changes into another, often through trouble, yet through challenge, often through brokenness. Yet faith persists. The fruits of the Spirit setting, growing, ripening, being of use, returning to dust, changing and changed, abiding. I do not know how and who I will be tomorrow. Today I am the sum of my yesterdays, all of those changes and what I have done with them. Today I am just becoming something different in this amazing whole. Today I am just glad to be part of it all. As Unitarian Universalists, we place a high value on personal and spiritual growth. Indeed, the third Unitarian Universalist principle explicitly encourages us to spiritual growth. So what does spiritual growth mean for us as Unitarian Universalists, as a religion that welcomes a multitude of spiritual truths from many traditions? As the Reverend Rob Hardy's writes, spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spirituality in 3D. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to a God above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, its volume, its capacity, its size. Spiritual growth can mean growing in all sorts of ways, being more compassionate, more grounded, more patient, more courageous, more present, more supportive, more receptive, more grateful, more loving to others, and more loving to ourselves. What areas of growth are important to you will be different than for others. Now, most of us have a sense of the ways in which we need to grow. We often just need support to do it, encouragement to do it, tools. And we also, I think, though, need community. You know, there's a perception that as we age, people tend to become more grumpy or cantankerous, more closed-minded or set in their ways. You know, as we experience losses, health problems, discrimination, end of relationships, setbacks, it can be easy to just turn towards bitterness and negativity. In some ways, it is the easier choice to just give in to our negative emotions. In other ways, of course, that path is harder because of the emotional and spiritual baggage you end up carrying around. It's exhausting and dissatisfying to be constantly carrying around anger and resentment. Yet the more we trod that path, the more worn and familiar it becomes, and the easier it is to choose it again. But we don't have to choose that path. As Naomi King writes, we can transform for bitter or for better, for sickness or healing, for fearfulness or for generosity, for anger or for kindness, for willful ignorance and hatred, or for wonder and wisdom. We always, at every moment, no matter what path we've taken in the past, have the option to choose that other path, the one that will lead to spiritual growth. Even if that path is overgrown after years of neglect, we can still choose that path. It might be blocked by downed trees with brush growing across it, and the path may seem to disappear entirely for stretches. But the next time we choose to follow that path of growth will be easier as the path becomes more worn and familiar. I was talking to my spiritual director recently, and that's something that, yes, even ministers need is spiritual direction. And I was talking to him about, knowing I've needed to grow in a particular area for a long time and have wanted to grow, and yet each time I've tried to change, I kept finding myself more or less where I started. Sure, I may be aware that something needs to change, which they say is always the first step. And sure, there might be small baby steps down that path of growth, however small those steps are. But each time I've made an attempt to change that part of myself, I told him it hasn't worked. And he said to me, "Okay, Matthew, so your previous attempts haven't worked. But let me ask you something. Do you consider yourself someone who has a capacity for personal transformation?" "Yes," I said, half worried about where he was going. "Okay," he said, "would you say you've been able to grow in ways that were often incredibly challenging and difficult and took a lot of work and effort to achieve?" "Yes," I said, as two conflicting emotions washed over me. On one hand, that meant I could no longer hold on to the narrative I held as a safety blanket that this was one area of my life that I couldn't change. But the other was a sense of relief that I could let go of that safety blanket, which I had held to protect me from really committing to transformation for so many years, that I really did have the capacity to change, though the path to growth would be difficult and we would be filled with plenty of setbacks, obstacles, and times when I lost the trail. But the more I took that path, the more familiar it would become and the easier it would be to traverse. And indeed, He also reminded me that I have, in years of working with him, that he has seen that I've come a ways, even if it's not where I would like, just like Julie was talking about. It is always a work in progress. And so even though it may feel like no progress is being made, we know in small bits it starts to add up as you slowly find your way down that path, make it a little more easy to follow. We can hold on to denial and hold on to rage and hold on to bitterness and hold on to the illusion that somehow we are exempt from change or as perfected as we are going to be, writes Naomi King. But then the breaking comes, as it inevitably does. Transformation happens because it is part of life, no matter what we try, deny, or do. Sometimes that impetus to grow builds up over years, and sometimes it comes all at once. It's often the circumstances and situations that upend our lives that can be the greatest catalysts for growth, if we only let them. It might be a major illness or the loss of someone close to us, which causes us to reevaluate the way we are living our lives. It could be moving to a new place without the familiar support systems that forces us to find inner strength, support we had not tapped into before. It could be the crisis that we collectively face as a planet that forces us to rethink our diets, our jobs, our consumption, and the way we live our lives. It could be not letting violence and war turn us towards hatred and retribution, but to love more deeply and fiercely instead. Father Richard Rohr, the Christian mystic and founder for the Center for Action and Contemplation, writes, "The pain of something falling apart, chaos, invites the soul to listen at a deeper level. It invites and sometimes forces the soul to go to a new place because the old place is falling apart. Otherwise, most of us would never go to new places. The mystics use many words to describe this chaos: fire, darkness, death, emptiness, abandonment, trial, the evil one. Whatever it is, it does not feel good and it does not feel like God. You will do anything to keep the old thing from falling apart. This is when you need patience, guidance, and the freedom to let go instead of tightening your controls and certitudes." He continues, "Change can either help people to find a new meaning, or it can cause people to close down and turn bitter. The difference is determined by the quality of our inner life, or what we call spirituality. Change itself just happens. Spiritual transformation is an active process of letting go, living in the confusing dark space for a while and allowing yourself to be spit up on a new and unexpected shore." So many of the great mystics, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Lao Tzu, had periods where they too disappeared into the wilderness, where nobody knew where they were or what they were doing. These were times of great struggle, of doubt and uncertainty for all of them. But they moved through these struggles, embracing them, allowing their experiences to transform them in a way that tapped into their deeper wisdom and a more expansive sense of self. It was only after they emerged from that wilderness that they became the great spiritual teachers that we now know them as. We are living in times of great struggle and upheaval now, as so much is shifting around us. It sometimes, I don't know about you, but I know for me it sometimes seems unimaginable how quickly change is happening. And with so much shifting around us, our congregations are being called to grow and change too. And I'll talk a little bit more about our own congregation next week. But today I want to talk briefly about a significant change that's coming up for our Unitarian Universalist denomination as a whole, as we are discussing shifting from our Unitarian Universalist principles to Unitarian Universalist values. And there will be a vote about this. This may not be new to some of you, but it's helpful to a helpful reminder. And there will be a vote at our National General Assembly in June, which Emerson will send delegates to, on whether to adopt those changes. And we've been exploring these 6 values with the 7th value of love at the center over the past several months in our worship services and small group ministry discussions. And this month, we are exploring the value of transformation. This is the description of transformation as it would be potentially adopted. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Our current principles were adopted almost 40 years ago at a time when the cultural and religious landscape of our world was different, when we faced different challenges. And so these proposed changes to values are an attempt to update to the world that we are living in now. One of the things that I appreciate about the changes about the values is that each of the values calls us to action, which was something that I have long felt was missing from the principles. There was no call to action. Also added is the call to dismantle oppression. And yet still many things stay the same. At the beginning of the sermon, I mentioned our 3rd principle, which encourages us to spiritual growth. Well, that language made it into transformation, slightly tweaked. And are the values that are being proposed perfect? No, and in fact, that's addressed right there in the value of transformation, that we are never complete and never perfect. We've changed a lot over the centuries. The forebears, those people the first heretics who pronounced Universalist and Unitarian ideas would look at Unitarian Universalism now and go, how is this the same religion? But some things still carry through. And although these values are not perfect, and I don't think anything that could be that is developed by a large group of people, but again, nothing is ever perfect. But I think they do a better job of speaking to where we are now and where we want to go in the next couple of decades. And in a few years, they will probably feel a little outdated, and we will want to change them again, as we have already done. Change is inevitable, and transformation is hard. But I think here in this community, we are lucky to find people who can help us travel that path. those who join in following that path alongside us as companions, or calling to us from a little further down the path with words of encouragement, as those same words of encouragement, we might offer to others. Here, too, we can tap into the spiritual wisdom of many different traditions and the wisdom of each other, as well as the presence of the divine, whatever that means to you, to help guide us down that path. And though the path may be challenging and hard and the destination uncertain, we do not have to worry about the destination, because each journey begins with but a single step. Before we get to our closing hymn, I wanted to offer thanks to those people who have helped make this service possible, to Julie, our worship associate, to our choir director, and our choir for offering such beautiful music, and our music director, Kevin Matthey, as well. And for the folks at the welcome desk who agreed, for the ushers, for the folks up in the crow's nest, making sure that our technology is running smoothly, to the people on Zoom who are moderating Zoom, and those who will help set up for our potluck, or maybe help clean up for our potluck, which is the second thing I want to get to. So as Julie mentioned earlier, we're having a teach-in about Palestine today here at Emerson at 1 o'clock. I think we have about 60 people RSVP'd to be here in person, and last I checked, it was in the 30s or 40s online. So good. I think we'll have a good turnout, and we have probably about 40-ish people who will be coming to the potluck. Maybe more. You're all, of course, whether you're coming to the teach-in or not, you're welcome to join in the potluck. So normally we have the potluck immediately after the service, but because we've invited guests from the community to attend, we're going to have it at 12 o'clock. So, if during our coffee hour, you're invited to get some coffee, conversation as we set up for the potluck, and then we'll start the potluck around right around 12 o'clock. And for those of you who want to join on Zoom for the teach-in, you can stick around on Zoom for the coffee hour, but the but the teach-in will not be on our regular Zoom room. So in order to attend the webinar, you have to go to and it keeps getting cut off. Did that last week too. emersonuuc.org/teach-in. That's also on the website and in the e-blast. But if you want to attend on Zoom, that's if you go there, there's a link to sign up for the Zoom webinar. So I hope to see you. I hope to see many of you there. It should be a very interesting program. And now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, May Your Life Be As a Song. It's number 1059 in the Teal hymnal.
May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night.
Sing that one more time.
May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night.
I invite you to reach out and join hands if you feel comfortable, to bump elbows, touch a shoulder, make a connection as you feel comfortable as we extinguish our chalice. To those of you joining us on Zoom, I invite you to send your energy out to those of us here in the sanctuary and to each other as we send our energy out to you as well. I offer you these words from Eric Walker Wickstrom. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who they were, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown, in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that may be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you could be. So may we all. Amen, ashe, and blessed be.